You know, I almost feel bad for what I said about you,
NANI?!
but I don't regret saying a word. You ever just play a game that you played years ago, like over decades, and you know it's bad, even to the point where it's become one of the most infamous additions to a well-loved franchise? Oftentimes, when looking back on things, we as people will have our memories tinted, especially when there's been a long period of time between since we played it and the now. Look at stuff like Pokemon. Even though the first generation is expressly loved and milked by Game Freak, it's still racked with problems with its coding and philosophies for balance. And yet, people still play and love it to this day. But for today's video, let me tell you, I've played a lot of bad games, bad stories, bad gameplay, and outright horrendous game design. And while I will say I've played worse, Devil May Cry 2 certainly deserves the reputation it acquired, and it belongs in hell. If you're just joining me, welcome to my journey through the Devil May Cry series. I've already covered the original game, and while that was a bit of a clunky start to the series, it was still a great beginning, so check that video out if you haven't, especially when we're about to talk about the mess of a sequel that even non-fans know suck. That being said, I think there is more to this game than meets the eye. For over 2 decades, this game has always been the butt of a joke amongst the Devil May Cry fans, and rightly so, but I feel like there's a bit of a misconception or two. Now, this video is not going to be a defense of the game, telling you that this game is actually a gem in the rough and everyone's wrong. It's more like a piece of garbage in the rough, if I'm being honest. That isn't to say there isn't anything good about this, but considering that this game is almost 25 years old, I think we should at the very least look at this game and really critique the game, other than just like, oh, shooty shooty bang bang bad. So, I'm MangaKamen, my soul is dead, and this is Devil May Cry 2. Help me!
That's just a piece of crap.
Who are you people? Why can't I take it off? Where am I?
Released in January 2003 for the PlayStation 2, Devil May Cry 2 is widely regarded to be one of the weakest entries in the entire DMC franchise, with various critiques such as the gameplay being so accessible that it becomes intolerable, Dante having his personality being surgically removed, and the story being all but missing.
This party getting cranky.
Empowered by the success of the original Devil May Cry, Capcom wanted to build a successor, and with the fact that the original had a lot of things going on, you'd figure that they'd keep going on with the stylish combat, the gothic atmosphere, and of course the protagonist Dante and his charm and wit. Well, you would be However, the development of the game was riddled with issues like Dante would fill up a demon with bullets, a rushed production cycle, a shift in creative leadership, and even a lack of cohesive vision. It's nothing short of a miracle that the franchise continued after what DMC 2 was. Then again, the development of the sequel was wrought with issues. One of the biggest was that there was a change in the development team. The original director of the first game, Hideki Kamiya, wasn't involved in the sequel. Instead, it was handed off to a completely different team, with Hideki Itsuno coming onto the project very late in its development. From what I've read online but can't completely be confirmed, it looked like Capcom had seen the potential behind Devil May Cry's franchise and wanted to capitalize on it. From what I understand, during the localization for DMC 1, DMC 2 started its development. Who the original dev team was, or who the director was, is only known to the people at Capcom, and at the time, Capcom apparently thought it was a good idea to not let Kamiya know that there was a sequel being made, let alone assigning him to oversee the development of said game.
上の方ではもうそのデビル2を他が作るとかが決まってたらしくて、僕知らなかったんですよ。まだデビル1をやってる最中だったんですよ。そのローカライズとか残りの作業でやってる時で、もうほぼアップして終わったとかっていうタイミングに、その上の方でこちょこちょ秘密裏に進んでいたデビル2のその企画マンが僕のところに来て、ちょっと参考のためにデビル1の企画書見せてほしいんだけどっていう話聞いて、なんでって聞いたら、いや僕が作るからってで、その時は僕もう俺クビなんだと思ってで僕だって
Gee, Capcom, you sure know how to treat your customers and employees, right?
Objection!
Most I can gather is that the team who was behind DMC2 was that they were only experienced on arcade games, and since this was still during the time where 3D games were in their growing pains, it was clear that the team lacked a lot of experience with 3D games. There were rumors that a newly hired producer at Capcom also had issue with Dante's personality, not really caring for the character to be cocky, and decided to have the team make Dante into a more serious character. If that's true, then the team surely failed with that, especially with all the goofy kicks that Dante would pull off when I played this game. It wouldn't be until the last 4 months of development that Itsuno was brought onto the project, but by then, most of the game was done, and there was no way to overhaul this with what little time he had left. And let me tell you, it shows. It really feels like Capcom was aiming to have a broader appeal to the game, having toned down the difficulty and gothic aesthetics that the first game had in order to make the sequel more accessible. Well, if there was ever a way to use the accessibility in games argument correctly, I think I found the proper game for it. There's a reason why this game is often touted as the worst in the entire series, at least from an objective standard. If you know anything about this channel, you'll realize I've come to be really annoyed whenever a critic uses the word objective when they use their criticisms. But from what I understood, Capcom objectively screwed this game up in the name of greed. And with that coming from a YouTuber, you know, the homeless individuals who often complain about the stuff on the internet for the sake of avarice, that means a lot. Though one scary thought crosses my mind: what the hell was this game even like before Itsuno got chained down to this sinking ship of a game? Was it worse? Just imagine the universe where Capcom thought it'd be a good idea just to send that poor bastard of a game out into the wild. But with all that said, let's actually get into this mess of a game. Grab the booze, pour yourself a shot, and prepare to watch me down the rest of the bottle. Devil May Cry 2, boys and girls. Ugh.
Popcorn.
That can't be it. Where's the rest of it?
Sometimes when it comes to stories in video games, and typically older ones, I give a lot of leeway to narratives.
You're right!
That's mostly because when given a particular kind of game, I tend to think that you can tell a great story through gameplay, or the gameplay itself is enough to compensate for the lack of an actual full-length narrative. Of course I have my limits! It'd be disingenuous for me to say that there isn't a story in this game, but it's told in probably one of the worst ways I've ever seen. There's a fun little fact about DMC2, and it comes with 2 discs. Or if you're playing the HD collection, it comes with 2 different modes, one for each of the playable characters, one for Dante and one for Lucia, the new character whose pants are so tight that it's a miracle that she can even breathe in those. Now, you'd probably think, oh, this is one of those games where you see the perspective of the story between 2 characters. But no, that's what a person with a brain would think, and whoever was behind this mess of a game clearly lacks one of those. The story is that Dante gets hired by Lucia and her grandmother, who hire him to deal with a guy named Arias and his master, with Dante going,
Looks like it's your lucky day.
Shut when you think about it.
and the only payment that Dante gets is a story about his father Sparta. So Dante goes to various locations doing random stuff, and then he goes to a city where he fights tanks, helicopters, and probably one of the worst villains I've ever seen in a long time, who seems to be stricken by pick a random guy off the street for this voice acting gig syndrome.
Now, I'll absorb his power. I will become an all-powerful immortal.
Which is especially weird because Arias is voiced by this guy!
Do you have the slightest idea how little that narrows it down?
And that happened before DMC2, so what the hell happened here? Oh, and then Dante kills Arias and the weirdest final boss, and then rides off into hell on a motorcycle.
Yeah. Let's go all the way to
I have a dream. I'm here to tell.
Yeah, that's basically the story. What, you think I'm holding out on you? No, that's the story. A lot of the time, you're just teleported to a location without any rhyme or reason, without any sort of idea what's going on next. At one point, I'm in a rundown town. Next, I'm in a huge city, and then I'm bubbling about in an oil rig? Then I'm in the catacombs, and finally I'm in 2 of the most confusing demonic hallways that don't have any actual good level design here. It's basically generic evil bad guy with no personality wants to summon generic evil god with no personality to become the immortal, and these 2 heroes with no personality must stop him. There's no real context for what we're supposed to be doing in each level, and the story certainly doesn't create any urgency for me. Hell, I was confused where we're picking up artifacts called Arcana to stop the bad guy from getting them to complete the ritual. Why? Because apparently the game thought it'd be a good idea to hide that secret from me. And that's mostly on the Dante side of things. Lucia? Well, you get more context and story, I suppose, but it lacks any sort of polish, or it didn't make me care. Lucia is an artificial demon-human hybrid created by Arius. One day she'll go berserk and attack humans and wants Dante to kill her.
The ones who have the blood of the devils. But the truth is, I was created by Arius. I could become a monster and attack the humans at any time. Now, kill me.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, the performances for the English localization aren't the best.
I was going to be the king of this world.
Not helped by the fact that the script was specifically tailored to smooth out any sort of personality that Dante had. In DMC 1, yeah, Dante had his cocky moments that kind of went against the entire plot.
Finally! I was getting tired of playing your childish games.
And you could argue that the dialogue was trying a bit too hard for him to be cool. But I enjoyed that cheesiness, and it was, at the very least, entertaining to watch. Even his personality did cause little tone conflict with the narrative. Dante in DMC 2 is a cardboard cutout of a character, what people would perceive to be cool. One of those brooding types who doesn't really care.
Whatever.
There's not really a deeper meaning here. I mean, you could probably infer that with Lucia's tale, plus my chat when I streamed in this game kept telling me that the old woman banged Sparta, Dante's father, but I don't know if that's true or not. It could be, for all I know. But you can sum up the story and script with the game with a single phrase from Dante.
That's just a piece of crap.
Look how they mess with my boy.
Gameplay is king. When a game's story flops, you hope the gameplay can at least throw you a bone. That's my mantra anyway. I like to think every game has some flicker of fun buried in there, even if fun is a squishy term that'll spark fights in the comments. But with DMC 2? Yeah, good luck finding anyone to defend this mess. We got a lot to unpack, so let's break it down to 3 pillars of gameplay. Combat, exploration, and puzzle solving. Bosses? Oh, they're a whole separate disaster, so we'll save that for its own section. First up, combat. Ugh, where do I start with that? It's like the developers threw everything that made DMC 1's combat slick and satisfying into a blender and hit puree. Context matters. This was a different team. Rushed to churn out a sequel, and the disconnect from the first game is painfully obvious. You control Dante, sure, and when you press a button he does something. Congrats, game, you cleared the lowest bar possible.
You did it. Good job. I can't believe it. I'm proud of you.
It's honestly sad I have to give props for that. Alright, let's start with weapons, or rather, how they're all pretty much the same flavor of meh. Dante's swords, Rebellion, Vendetta, and Merciless, and Lucia's blades, we all feel like carbon copies. Vendetta looks badass, like it could cleave demons in half with a satisfying thunk, but it's got all the weight of a pool noodle. Switching between them? It's kind of pointless. It's like choosing between 3 shades of beige. In DMC 1, Alistair and Ifrit had distinct pros and cons, forcing you to strategize with a risk-reward system. DMC 2's weapon switching for both melee and firearms, a half-baked gesture that changes nothing. Every swing feels like you're hacking at air no matter the blade. The upgrades? In DMC 1, upgrading unlocked new moves, giving you fresh ways to style on enemies. You'd read a quick blurb, practice, and feel like a badass when it clicked with you. DMC 2 though? Upgrades are just boring damage boosts. Yawn. All your moves are unlocked from the start, but they're buried in a menu like some forgotten treasure. Who's got time to dig through that when you're thrown into the game with 0 guidance? There's a design rule. Players rarely look up. I think we need to change that to players rarely look up how to play. DMC 2 takes that to heart, hiding its complex moves in a place that no one's checking. Compare that to later titles or even DMC 1 where upgrades come with clear descriptions in your menus you're using already. It's not perfect, but at least respects your time and intelligence. Then there's the infamous gun spam critique. People say you can just shoot your way through DMC 2 with Ebony and Ivory, and yeah, you can. It's not a myth, but it's clunky as all hell. Melee combat does more damage and clears encounters faster, but here's the catch. A ton of enemies and even some bosses are flapping around off screen like brain-dead pigeons. Trying to melee them feels like you're breakdancing in midair, flailing with awkward kicks instead of, the giant sword in Dante's hands. I get it, Dante's got legs for days with all that wall-running nonsense, but I'd rather use the 20 pounds of steel he's lugging around to slash demons in two. Guns become the path of least resistance, especially since you can juggle enemies without punishment. It's not fun, it's just easier. But the real kicker? The lock-on system. Or, as I like to call it, the screw you button. Most games, hell, even Ocarina of Time, the granddaddy of 3D lock-on combat, let you hold a button to focus on an enemy. Simple, right? DMC2 says, hold my beer, and gives you an unlock button instead. No tutorial, no heads up, just pure chaos. The game auto-locks onto enemies, and if one of them's floating 20 feet away while you're trying to smack down a glowing orb, lamp, Dante will spin 360 degrees like a confused ballerina trying to swing at the wrong target. The fact they include an unlock button proves they knew this was a problem, but decide, players will figure it out. Spoiler, we didn't. DMC1 had lock-on issues too, but they were manageable, most notable in tight spots like Nightmare's third fight where hitting those circular switches felt like hurting cats. In DMC2, it's a constant headache, especially during puzzles with endlessly spawning enemies. Dante's got the attention span of a caffeinated squirrel locking onto some flying demon instead of the lamp that I'm begging him to hit. For the love of God, just hit the damn thing already! And don't get me started on the combo system. Oh, that's why you're here, so I'm going to anyway. DMC1's combos relied on timing, rewarding you for learning its rhythm through trial and error. DMC2 ties combos to joystick directions, which sounds fine until the auto-lock yanks you away from your target mid-swing. Some moves only work when you're not locked on, too, but good luck pulling those off when the game's hell-bent on gluing you to an enemy. Half the time you're spamming Stinger or High Time, stuck in a loop of the same bland moves. I swear, there were moments of the game where it switched my target mid-combo like it was gaslighting me. Oh, you wanted to hit that guy? Too bad! Now, about that enemy AI. It's a chaotic dumpster fire that saps the combat's soul. Sure, they're tossed in a reticle to show that you're locked onto and dedicated dodge button. Cute, right? Doesn't matter. The enemy's design is a total crapshoot, often landing on the miss. It felt like most of the time the enemies are off screen, flapping around like clueless moths, and not just the clueless moth I'm talking about, forcing you into tedious shooting galleries. Other times they're just standing there, menacingly, practically begging to get slapped silly, with no strategy or threat. Unlike DMC's tight, calculated enemy patterns, DMC2's AI sleepwalks through fights most of the time, turning the series' signature stylish combat into a clunky, inconsistent slog. Exploration and puzzles? Buckle up because they're just as bad. The puzzles, mostly hitting those damn lamps, are tedious busy work. You jump through hoops, attack glowing orbs, and hope the game doesn't screw you over with this auto-lock nonsense. And sometimes, I swear, the puzzles will solve themselves even if you're too slow, which feels like the game giving up on itself. The worst offender? Lucia's water levels. You're stuck with sluggish water controls, endlessly spawning enemies, and lamps you need to activate the progress. It's messier than a YouTube drama comments section. Exploration is where things get personal because DMC2's level design is a snooze. Remember the brandification of the early 2000s gaming? That era where AAA titles drowned everything in gray and yellow filters to seem mature? DMC2 drinks that Kool-Aid hard. Not surprising since that was the era where it came out. The levels aren't completely colorless, but they're bland and confusing. Near the end, you revisit a corrupted version of the starting town to, guess what? Activate more lamps to open a demon world portal. Sounds cool, right? Right? Wrong! It took me 40 damn minutes to find those lamps because the game hides them like it's playing a prank. No markers, no clear paths, just vague platforming with invisible walls sometimes to block your way. I'm no genius, but when a game refuses to guide you, it's not a skill issue, it's bad design. Take Arius' corrupted building in the demon world. The level design bleeds into itself in a gray-brown blur with green mixed in, had me running around in circles. DMC1 used red orbs or unique enemies to nudge you in the right direction, but that's only until you're ready to end that level and it only shows you to one single door. DMC2, it's allergic to hints. You're left jumping and backtracking, praying you stumble onto the next objective like the game dares you to care. I am not saying DMC2 is unplayable. A lot of this could be a skill issue on my end. You can melee through it faster than gun spamming, despite what the critics will say. But when enemies are airborne and off-screen, and the lock-on system's fighting you harder than the demons, it's no wonder people lean on guns. The combat, exploration, and puzzles just don't miss the mark, they yeet it into the void. This isn't stylish devil-triggering chaos we signed up for. It's a sequel that feels like it forgot why we loved the first game. And that makes a lot of sense because this was made while it was in translation. Oh. Why are you here? Devil May Cry 2's bosses are a masterclass in squander potential, like a chef burning a 5-star meal and serving you the ashes. These aren't fights, they're chores designed with all the creativity of a damp paper towel. Take Nephosaurus, a skyscraper-sized demon that rips itself out of a building. Cool concept, right? Too bad it's a glorified punching bag that spams the same predictable energy blasts over and over again. Once you chip away at its health, its head detaches, floats around, and shoots a laser so easy to dodge you could do it blindfolded while scrolling on X. It's less of a boss and more of a PowerPoint presentation on disappointment. Then there's Noctipteran, a giant moth that hovers out of reach, barfing up larvae that grow up faster than the TikTok trend and worse than this joke. Its massive health pool helps drag the fight into a tedious slog, made worse by the bland, flat arena that screams, "We forgot to design this." Want to melee? No! Bring a ladder or go home. Trismagia, a 3-headed elemental demon, sounds like it could be epic. Instead, it's a floating Power Rangers helmet reject that splits into 3 heads, each with an attack pattern so predictable you could set your watch to them. It spends half the fight drifting in the stratosphere, untouchable, as if mocking your inability to jump higher. It's not hard, it's just annoying, like a fly buzzing just out of swatting range. But the crown jewel of awfulness, Tate Besu, exclusive to Lucia's campaign. Picture this, you're underwater, wrestling with controls clunkier than a dial-up modem while the camera swings around like it's auditioning for a Michael Bay flick. Oh, and the boss can turn invisible, rendering the auto-lock as useful as a screen door on a submarine. It's not challenging, it's infuriating, like trying to fight a ghost with a pool noodle. Even the infamous infected chopper, a meme for all the wrong reasons, feels like a vacation compared to Tatabesu. At least Dante can move around without feeling like he's wading through mud. But don't get cozy, it's still a mess, just a slightly less soul-crushing one. The real crime here, though? These bosses, they have no personality, no narrative weight. Compare them to DMC1's Phantom or Griffin, who at least had a pulse and some banter to them.
What a big surprise. I hope for your sake you got something inside that big body of yours.
In DMC2, you get Bulwark, a skeletal warrior with a badass design and 2 wolf pets that fight alongside him, Freki and Yeri. Straight out of Norse mythology. Sounds like a setup for an epic fight, right? Especially having a rival? Wrong! The game gives us one measly line. He was defeated by Sparta. That's it. No death, no honor-fueled vendetta against Dante, just a wasted opportunity that could have been a highlight. The Japanese version hints at more lore, but the English localization says, nah, who cares? And finally there's Arius, the big bad who just sits on his throne like a discount dollar store villain, sending goons to do his dirty work. He's less of a final boss and more of a middle manager who forgot to schedule for the real fight. No charisma, no menace, just a guy who probably files his taxes while you're slashing his minions. Most you get out of him is a laugh at how bad his voice acting is.
What? What's going on?
There is the real final boss who just kinda comes out of nowhere, and this was the second time I died on stream to this boss, but that's mainly because it was competently programmed to be somewhat like a fair fight. Oh boy, the last boss is actually competently coded. Yay!
That's just a piece of crap.
These bosses typically don't challenge you, they bore you. The only other time I died was when I was stuck in a rotating room with no clue what to do, not because it was hard, but because the game forgot to explain what the hell I'm supposed to do. It's like DMC2 looked at its predecessor's tight, memorable boss battles and said, "You think I can't screw this up? Just watch me."
I can't take it anymore! I just want to die! We all want to die!
Devil May Cry 2 isn't the worst game I've ever played, but it's a masterclass in boredom that somehow makes frustration an art form. It's like the developers tried to craft a snooze button for the entire franchise, and kinda succeeded. Sure, it's got a couple of decent scraps to it. A dedicated dodge button that actually works when the camera isn't drunk, a lock-on reticle that occasionally remembers to do its job, and Dante's outfit is cool, but at the cost of his personality. Those are like finding decently rare Pokemon cards amongst the commons nowadays. From what I understand, the team behind this got shown the door for later games in this franchise, and honestly, Capcom made the right call, which is a miracle since they greenlit this abomination in the first place. The good news? This snooze fest is done, and we're speeding towards one of my all-time favorite games, the one that made Devil May Cry an actual legend. Want more? Drop this line in the comments and hit that like button. It's proof you survived this slog and want me to keep this series going. Until next time, I'm MangaKamen and...
Sorry, not open for business yet.